A week before Christmas, I heard my son-in-law talking to his father on the phone. During the holidays, I'll kick this old man out and you'll move in with us. Instead of anger or sadness, I calmly came up with a plan. He was expecting triumph, but got a shock. His Christmas ended outside. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you were listening in the comments. The smell hit me first when I opened the front door. Something with onions, garlic, that sharp edge of wine being cooked down. Maud was making her beef stew, the one she used to make on Wednesdays before Jonathan decided he preferred takeout. I stood in the entryway, my coat still on, listening. Jonathan's voice carried from down the hall, from what used to be my study. The door was closed, but his words came through anyway, muffled but animated. A phone call, maybe, or talking to himself. He did that sometimes. I moved toward the kitchen. Maud stood at the stove, wooden spoon in hand, stirring faster than necessary. Her shoulders were tight, pulled up near her ears. She didn't turn when I walked in. "Evening," I said. "Hi, Dad." Her voice was thin, stretched. The kitchen table had papers scattered across it. Mail, mostly, the usual collection of catalogs and bills. But one envelope lay open, its contents exposed. A credit card statement. I recognized the logo, the account number. Mine. The one I'd added Maud 2 years ago, back when she was finishing her master's degree and needed help with textbooks. I'd forgotten to take her name off after she graduated. Jonathan had been using it for 6 months now. I picked up the statement, scanned the charges. Most were small, gas, groceries, nothing alarming. Then I saw it. December 14th. $3,200. The merchant name was unfamiliar, something corporate and vague. Investment Services, LLC. My jaw tightened. I set the paper down carefully, precisely, exactly where I'd found it. Maud's spoon stopped moving. She turned, saw what I'd been looking at. "Dad, don't start." I kept my voice level. $3,000 is a lot, Maud. I just want to understand. Jonathan knows what he's doing. She cut me off, her tone sharp, preemptively defensive. "You wanted us to succeed, remember?" I said nothing. We'd had versions of this conversation before. Different amounts, different excuses, same result. I'd write another check or transfer more money, and the cycle would continue. 2 years of this. 2 years of promises about the next big opportunity. The deal that would change everything. The investor who was practically begging to get involved. Footsteps in the hallway. Jonathan appeared in the doorway, all smiles and easy confidence. He was dressed the way he always dressed. Business casual, the kind that suggested meetings without actually requiring them. Pressed shirt, no tie, shoes that cost more than they should. "Walter, didn't hear you come in." He moved past me to kiss Maud on the cheek, then opened the refrigerator and pulled out a beer. "How was the clinic?" "Fine," I said, "just checking on some post-op cases." I'd retired from my veterinary practice 3 years ago, sold it to a younger vet who occasionally called me in for consultations. It gave me something to do, kept my skills sharp, and it got me out of the house for a few hours each week. That's great. Jonathan twisted the cap off his beer. "Dinner smells amazing, babe." We sat down to eat 20 minutes later. The dining room felt smaller than it used to, somehow, even though nothing had changed physically. Same table, same chairs, same sideboard that had belonged to my parents. But the air felt compressed, the space insufficient. Jonathan launched into his usual dinner monologue. The deal he was working on. Always the deal he was working on. This time it involved commercial real estate, a strip mall in Gresham that was about to be rezoned. He had an inside track, he said. Real investors, solid backing. By February, they'd be in a completely different position financially. I ate my stew and said nothing. Maud smiled at him, hopeful and eager, the way she used to look at me when she was 8 years old and I'd promised to take her to the zoo on Saturday. "Speaking of bills," Jonathan said, his tone shifting to casual, almost offhand. "The electricity this month was higher than usual, $420. Winter rates, you know. Everyone's running their heaters more." I set my fork down, reached for my wallet in my back pocket, pulled out my checkbook. Yes, I still use checks, still preferred them. I wrote out the amount, tore the check free, slid it across the table. Jonathan picked it up, folded it once, slipped it into his shirt pocket. "Thanks, Walter. You're the best." I resumed eating. The stew had gone lukewarm. After dinner, Maud stayed to clear the table. Jonathan excused himself, headed back toward the study. I heard the door close, heard the creak of the office chair, my office chair, the one I'd bought 15 years ago when my back started giving me trouble. I climbed the stairs slowly, feeling every one of my 67 years in my knees. My bedroom was at the end of the hall. It used to be the guest room, back when I had a master bedroom downstairs, the one with the attached bathroom and the reading nook. 6 months ago, Jonathan had asked if they could take that room. More space for them, he'd said. They were planning to start a family soon. I'd agreed. Of course I'd agreed. What kind of father would I be if I didn't? I sat on the edge of my bed looking around. The room was cramped, the ceiling lower up here, the walls closing in. My clothes hung in a narrow closet. My books were stacked on a small shelf because there wasn't room for my old bookcase. I'd given that to them too, for Jonathan's office. The past 2 years played through my mind like a slideshow I couldn't stop. The promises. The business plans that never quite materialized. The loans that were supposed to be temporary. The $47,000 I'd given them, not counting the credit card charges I'd just discovered. I heard my sister Mamie's voice in my head, the warning she'd given me 6 months ago when she'd visited for Thanksgiving. Walter, he's never going to stop asking. You know that, right? He's using you. I'd defended Jonathan then. He's family, I'd said. He's trying. He just needs time. Family, I whispered now to the empty room. The word felt hollow. I stood, started getting ready for bed. Then I remembered. My phone. I'd left it downstairs on the kitchen counter, plugged into the charger. I usually brought it up with me, but tonight I'd been distracted by the credit card statement, by Jonathan's performance at dinner. I opened my door, stepped into the hallway. The house was quiet now, the kind of quiet that settles in after people retreat to their separate spaces. I moved toward the stairs, my feet finding the spots on the floor that didn't creak, a habit from years of living alone, of moving through my house at night without waking anyone. At the bottom of the stairs, I turned toward the kitchen. That's when I heard Jonathan's voice again, coming from the study. The door was open a crack, just enough. He wasn't alone this time. Another voice responded, deeper, older. Speaker phone. I stopped. My hand rested on the banister. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I wasn't moving either. No, Dad, I'm telling you, he's perfect, Jonathan said. He won't even fight it. The other voice, muffled but clear enough. You're sure about the timeline? Absolutely. We do it right after Christmas. He'll be so shocked he won't know what hit him. And legally, we've got everything lined up. My breathing stopped. I stood frozen in the hallway, every muscle locked. Jonathan's voice continued, casual and confident, like he was discussing dinner plans. Stephen, listen, I've been documenting everything. The guy's 70, practically senile, forgets conversations, can't manage his own finances. We've got 2 years of me helping him with bills, making decisions about the house. Any judge will see he needs supervision. But the house is in his name alone. Stephen, Jonathan's father, I'd met him twice. Each time he'd looked at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. For now, that's why the timing matters. Once we establish incompetency, Maud gets conservatorship. Then we can start the process of transferring assets. The house alone is worth $600,000, probably more with the market the way it is. My hand tightened on the banister, the wood pressed into my palm. What about his sister? Stephen asked. Jonathan laughed, sharp and dismissive. Mamie, she lives in Sacramento. She barely visits. And even if she makes noise, what's she going to do? We'll have documentation, legal standing. Walter's been giving us power of attorney over accounts, signing things without reading them. He trusts Maud completely. Trusted. Past tense after this week. The nursing home angle. You're sure that'll work? It's perfect. We're not saying he's incompetent enough for a locked facility, just that he needs assisted living. Can't handle stairs anymore, can't cook safely, classic elderly stuff. We'll find a place in Beaverton, maybe Hillsborough, somewhere far enough that he can't just walk back. And here's the beautiful part. We'll use his own money to pay for it. He's got that retirement fund, the pension from the clinic. It'll cover the costs for years. I couldn't move. My legs had stopped working. When are you telling Maud the full plan? Stephen's voice had an edge now, careful. She knows enough. She knows we need the house, that Walter's been dead weight financially. She doesn't need to know every detail. She'll go along with it because she doesn't have a choice. Where else is she going to go? Back to teaching part-time for $30,000 a year. She likes the life I've promised her. She'll convince herself it's for Walter's own good. And if he fights, he won't. The man writes me a check every time I ask. He gave up his bedroom without a single argument. He's the perfect victim because he's too passive to protect himself. After Christmas, when everyone's feeling generous and forgiving, we'll sit him down, tell him we're worried about him, that we think he needs more care than we can provide. He'll resist for maybe a day, then fold like he always does. The conversation shifted to logistics. Lawyers Stephen knew, the paperwork already drafted, the timeline for filing. I stopped listening to the words. My brain couldn't process anymore. It was full, overflowing with the weight of what I'd just heard. I moved backward, away from the study, my feet finding the stairs by instinct, up to my room. I closed the door without sound, crossed to my bed, sat down in the darkness. I didn't turn on the light, didn't trust my hands to be steady enough to find the switch. Perfect victim. The phrase kept repeating in my head. Perfect victim. Because I was too passive to protect myself. Because I wrote checks without argument. Because I'd given up my bedroom, my study, my dignity piece by piece. I looked around the dark room, my room, the smallest room in my own house. The house I'd bought 32 years ago, when Maud was 3 years old. The house where I'd raised her alone after her mother died. Where I'd taught her to ride a bike in the driveway. Where I'd helped her with calculus homework at the kitchen table. Where I'd watched her graduate high school with honors. This house was mine, legally, financially, morally. And they were planning to take it. Planning to put me in a facility and spend my money keeping me there while they lived in my home. My hands started shaking, not from fear, from understanding. I sat there through the night. Sleep wasn't possible. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Jonathan's voice. Perfect victim. Practically senile. Dead weight. Hours passed. I watched the darkness shift to gray, then to the pale blue of pre-dawn. I thought through every interaction over the past 2 years. Every time Jonathan had asked for money, I'd given it. Every time he'd needed something, I'd provided it. Every promise he'd made about paying me back, getting on his feet, turning things around. All lies. Calculated manipulation, the electricity bill, $420. He'd asked for it at dinner like it was nothing, like it was my obligation. And I'd handed over the check without even questioning it. Because that's what I did. That's who I'd become. $47,000. That was just what I'd counted. The number was probably higher. The credit card charges I didn't know about. The loans he'd convinced Maud to ask me for. The house repairs that Jonathan had insisted on. Paid for with my money. Probably never done at all. I stood up, moved to the window. The street below was empty, silent. Down the block, a single streetlight flickered, preparing to shut off for the day. In a few hours, people would wake up, start their routines, go about their lives. Jonathan would come down for breakfast, probably crack some joke, flash that smile. Maud would make coffee, hover around him like she did every morning, and I would sit at the table and pretend I hadn't heard anything. No. The word formed in my mind clearly, solidly. No. I'd been passive. I'd been accommodating. I'd convinced myself that family meant sacrifice, that love meant giving without expectation of return. But this wasn't family. This was theft. This was cruelty dressed up in false concern. They'd miscalculated. They'd assumed I was too old, too tired, too desperate for connection to fight back. They'd mistaken patience for weakness. I walked back to my bed, sat down again. My breathing had steadied. My hands had stopped shaking. The shock was burning off, replaced by something colder, sharper, clarity. I had advantages they didn't know about. I'd heard the plan, I knew the timeline, and they had no idea that I knew any of it. Information was leverage. Surprise was a weapon. I thought about my sister Mamie. I should have listened to her 6 months ago, but I could listen to her now. I thought about the clinic, my former partner who still called me for advice. I thought about my bank accounts, my retirement funds, the house title sitting in a safe deposit box at the credit union. The sky outside shifted to orange, then pink. Dawn. Thursday morning, December 19th. 6 days until Christmas. 6 days until they planned to execute their strategy. I stood again, moved to my small closet, pulled out clothes. A shower could wait. I needed to think, to plan, to transform the anger burning in my chest into something useful. The victim was gone. Whatever I'd been yesterday, whatever passive fool had written that check at dinner, he didn't exist anymore. I caught my reflection in the mirror above my dresser. Same face, same lines around my eyes, same gray in my close-cropped hair. But something behind my eyes had changed. Something had hardened. They wanted to take my house, my home. They wanted to lock me away, steal my money, erase me. I smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Let them try. Morning light crept through my window. I'd been sitting there for hours, fully dressed, waiting. Around 7, I heard movement downstairs, Maud's footsteps in the kitchen, the rattle of the coffee maker. Jonathan's heavier tread crossed the hallway toward the bathroom. Normal morning sounds, normal day, for them. I stood, checked my reflection one last time. Same face I'd worn yesterday, the day before, every day for 2 years. Patient, accommodating, harmless. I pulled on my jacket, grabbed my wallet and keys. Time to move. Downstairs, Maud was pulling dishes from the cabinet. She glanced up when I appeared in the doorway. "Going somewhere, Dad?" "Just a morning walk." I kept my voice light, easy. "Need to clear my head, get some air." She nodded absently, already turning back to the counter. "Okay, don't forget, we're decorating the tree this afternoon." I managed to smile. "Wouldn't miss it." Jonathan emerged from the hallway, hair still wet from the shower. He raised a coffee mug in greeting. "Morning, Walter. Early start today?" "Can't sleep late like I used to." I patted my jacket pocket. "Getting old, you know." He laughed, that easy, confident sound. "You're not old, Walter. You're seasoned." I left through the front door, started down the walkway toward the street. This was my usual direction for walks, left at the corner, around the block, back within 30 minutes. Maud had probably already forgotten I'd left. Jonathan certainly had. But I didn't turn left at the corner. I kept walking past my usual route toward where I'd parked my car the night before, 3 blocks away, tucked against the curb on a quieter street. I climbed in, started the engine, pulled away from the neighborhood. Downtown Portland was 20 minutes away in light traffic. I drove deliberately, hands steady on the wheel, mind already organizing the tasks ahead. The Central Library opened at 9. I'd be there when the doors unlocked. The library building rose 5 stories, limestone and glass, familiar from decades of visits when Maud was young. I'd brought her here for summer reading programs, helped her research school projects. Now I was here for research of a different kind. Inside, I navigated past the main desk, past the computer stations where morning patrons checked email and filled out job applications. The legal reference section occupied a quiet corner on the 2nd floor. Perfect. I pulled volumes from the shelves, Oregon revised statutes, property law guides, tenant rights documentation. Carried them to a corner table where I could work undisturbed. My notebook came out, small, unobtrusive, the kind veterinarians carry for quick notes on patient care. I opened to a fresh page and began reading. 2 hours passed. My hand moved steadily across the pages, recording statute numbers, relevant passages, procedural requirements. ORS 105-1865. That was the key statute governing my situation. I photographed important pages with my phone, careful to capture the text clearly. The work was methodical, focused, habits from decades of veterinary practice now applied to legal research. The most crucial discovery came an hour in. Because the house was registered exclusively in my name, and because Jonathan had never formalized any investment or rental agreement, I had complete legal authority. He wasn't a tenant. He wasn't a part owner. He was a guest. And guests could be asked to leave. I sat back, pen still in hand. The law was on my side. Not because of any loophole, but because it was my house, my property, my name on the deed. The knowledge settled into my bones like certainty. But knowledge wasn't enough. I needed professional guidance. Someone who understood the procedures, the paperwork, the timeline. Someone who could help me do this correctly. I gathered the books, returned them to their shelves. Near the reference desk, a community bulletin board held business cards pinned in neat rows. Attorneys, financial planners, real estate agents. I scanned the cards, found what I needed. Nichols and Partners, property law and tenant relations. Outside on the library steps, I pulled out my phone, dialed the number. 2 rings. Nichols and Partners, how may I help you? I kept my tone measured, professional. I need a consultation regarding property law and eviction procedures. It's time sensitive. Are you the property owner or tenant? Owner. The property is mine. solely in my name. A brief pause, keys clicking in the background. We have availability tomorrow, Friday, at 2 o'clock with Mr. Nichols. I'll take it. I'll bring all necessary documentation. The call ended. First official step taken. Tomorrow I'd have professional backing. Today I just needed to maintain the performance. I drove home, parked 3 blocks away again, walked back to the house. Inside, Maud was in the kitchen preparing lunch. Jonathan occupied the living room couch, laptop open, probably checking email or browsing investment websites, looking busy without actually doing anything productive. "How was your walk, Dad?" Maud called when I hung up my jacket. "Good, refreshing." I moved to the kitchen, poured myself water. "Beautiful morning out there." Jonathan appeared in the doorway, expansive and cheerful. "Walter, glad you're back. I wanted to tell you, I went ahead and invited my dad for Christmas dinner. Hope that's all right." He didn't wait for response, never did. "And a few friends too, probably 12 people total. Big celebration." I met his eyes evenly. "Of course, Jonathan. This is your home too." The lie tasted bitter, but my face showed nothing. Jonathan grinned. "Exactly. Real family gathering. My dad's really looking forward to it." I nodded slowly. "I'm sure he is." I knew precisely what Stephen was looking forward to. The big announcement. The concerned conversation about Walter's declining capacity. The sympathetic faces of witnesses as they prepared to ship me off to assisted living. "Wonderful idea," I added. "The more the merrier." Maud seemed pleased, relieved that I wasn't objecting, wasn't creating conflict. She'd misread my cooperation entirely. They both had. After lunch, I excused myself, climbed the stairs to my room, closed the door, sat at the small desk near the window, and pulled out my checkbook register, bank statements, credit card records. Time for a complete accounting. I began listing expenses in careful columns, dates, amounts, purposes, Jonathan's promises to repay. The work was meticulous, thorough. Each entry brought clarity, validation for what I was about to do. January 2023, mortgage assistance $3,000, I muttered, pen scratching across paper. February, business investment $5,000, supposed to be temporary. The word dripped sarcasm. March, utilities, car repair, groceries. The list grew, page after page. Every time I'd heard, "just until this deal closes." Every time I'd believed him. Every broken promise documented. I reached the bottom of the second page, added the column, stared at the total. $47,300. 2 years of my retirement savings. For nothing. For lies and manipulation and false promises. I set down the pen, looked around my cramped room. This was what I'd gotten in exchange. Smaller space, less freedom. The title of convenient bank account in my own home. Tomorrow I'd meet with the attorney. Tomorrow I'd start taking it all back. Friday afternoon, the law offices of Nichols and Partners occupied the 3rd floor of a building on Broadway, downtown Portland. Glass doors, reception area with gray carpet and matching chairs, diplomas on the walls. Professional, established. Exactly what I needed. I'd left the house at 1:30, telling Maud I had a dental appointment. Another small lie. Another brick in the wall I was building between my family and my true intentions. She'd barely looked up from her phone. The receptionist greeted me with efficiency. "Mr. Knight, Mr. Nichols is ready for you." David Nichols was maybe 50. Wire-rimmed glasses, suit jacket hung on a coat rack behind his desk. He stood when I entered, offered his hand. His grip was firm, professional. "Mr. Knight, please have a seat." I settled into the chair across from his desk, withdrew my notebook from my jacket pocket. The pages filled with research, figures, documentation, everything I'd gathered. "I appreciate you seeing me on short notice," I said. "You mentioned time sensitivity on the phone." Nichols pulled a legal pad toward himself, uncapped a pen. "Tell me about your situation." I laid it out methodically. The house, my property, purchased 32 years ago, solely in my name. My daughter and son-in-law moving in 2 years ago, supposedly temporarily while they got established. No rental agreement, no formal arrangement. Just family helping family. Then the financial support. $47,300 over 24 months. The broken promises. The gradual takeover of my space. the credit card charges I hadn't authorized. Nichols took notes, occasionally nodding, asking clarifying questions. His expression remained neutral, professional. When I finished, he set down his pen. "And now you want them to leave?" "Yes." I held his gaze. "I want my house back." He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "Let me ask you directly. Is there any documentation of a rental agreement? Any written promise of investment or ownership transfer?" "Nothing. It's all been verbal." "Your name is the only one on the deed?" "Only mine." "And they've never paid rent?" "Never. I've paid for everything." Nichols nodded slowly. "Then legally, this is straightforward. Under Oregon Revised Statute 105.165, they're considered guests, not tenants. You have the right to terminate their stay with appropriate notice." Something loosened in my chest. Professional validation, legal backing. "How much notice?" I asked. 30 days is standard for guests who've been residing in the property for an extended period. Given the family relationship, I'd recommend the full 30 to avoid any claims of improper eviction. I pulled out my phone, opened the calendar. If I give notice on Monday, December 23rd, that means they'd need to vacate by January 22nd. "Correct," Nichols made a note. "The notice must be in writing, delivered properly. I can draft that for you. It should include the termination date, the legal basis, and a clear statement that they're required to vacate. What if they refuse? After the 30 days expire, you can file for formal eviction through the courts. But in most cases, once people realize the legal position is against them, they comply. The alternative, eviction proceedings, creates a public record that makes finding new housing difficult." I thought about Jonathan's confidence, his assumption that I'd never fight back. "There's something else?" I overheard them planning to have me declared incompetent, to take the house through conservatorship. Nichols's expression sharpened. "When did you hear this?" "Wednesday night. They were discussing timeline, strategy. Christmas was supposed to be the trigger." "Do you have any documentation of this conversation?" "No, just what I heard." He made more notes. "That changes the urgency. If they're planning legal action against you, you need to act first. Establishing that you're competent, in control of your affairs, and making clear decisions about your property undermines any incompetency claim." That's what I thought. "I also recommend updating your will and power of attorney documents. Make sure everything is current, reflects your wishes, and designates someone trustworthy, not your daughter, to handle your affairs if necessary." I hadn't considered that. "My sister, Mamie, she lives in Sacramento." "Perfect. We can handle those documents as well." Nichols pulled out a form, began filling in header information. "For today, let's focus on the termination notice. I'll draft it professionally, have it ready by Monday morning. You'll need to decide how to deliver it." "In person," I said immediately. "Christmas dinner, they're planning a big gathering, inviting his father and friends. They were going to use it as the stage for their announcement about me. I'll use it for mine." Nichols raised an eyebrow. "That's dramatic. That's justice." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "All right. The notice will be ready Monday. I'll have 2 copies, one for them, one for your records. If they refuse to sign acknowledging receipt, that's fine. Delivery in the presence of witnesses is valid." We discussed logistics, the language of the notice, the procedures that would follow. The costs, $2,800 for the initial consultation, document preparation, and follow-up work through the 30-day period. I didn't hesitate. After spending $47,000 on Jonathan's lies, this was the best investment I'd made in years. Nichols walked me through additional considerations: property security, changing locks if necessary, documenting their possessions, proper storage if they abandoned items. The process was detailed, professional, exact. "One more thing," he said as we wrapped up. "Maintain meticulous documentation of everything from this point forward. Every interaction, every communication, every expense. If this goes to court, that record will be crucial." "I've been documenting everything since Thursday morning." I showed him my notebook, the pages of financial records, dates, details. "Excellent. Keep that up." He stood, extended his hand again. "I'll have the documents ready by 11 on Monday. You can pick them up here." I shook his hand, felt the weight of professional backing, legal authority. For 2 years I'd felt powerless in my own home, but sitting in that office, hearing Nichols explain my legal position, I understood. The power had always been mine. I just hadn't known how to use it. Outside, the afternoon had turned cold, clouds gathering above the buildings. I walked to my car slowly, letting the relief settle into my bones. The law was on my side, not because of cleverness or manipulation, but because it was my house, my property, my right. I drove home through thickening traffic, Christmas shoppers clogging the streets. The radio played seasonal music, songs about joy and family and peace. I turned it off. 4 days until Christmas. 4 days until Jonathan's planned humiliation of me. 4 days until I turned their plan inside out. The house appeared ahead, lights on in the windows, warm and inviting from the outside. Jonathan and Maud were probably inside right now, discussing logistics for the dinner, planning their performance, confident, unsuspecting. I pulled into my usual spot, cut the engine, sat for a moment in the growing darkness. Monday I'd pick up the documents, Christmas Day I'd deliver them, and 30 days after that I'd have my house back. Everything else would follow from there. The next morning arrived with pale winter sunlight filtering through my window. Saturday. 2 days before, I'd pick up the documents from Nichols. 3 days before Christmas dinner. 3 days before, everything changed. I came downstairs to find Maud pulling boxes from the hall closet, Christmas decorations spilling across the living room floor, lights tangled in knots, ornaments wrapped in tissue paper, the artificial tree standing bare in the corner, waiting to be dressed. She glanced up when I appeared. "Dad, you don't have to help with all this if you're tired." I took a box from her arms, set it on the coffee table. "Nonsense. It's Christmas. Family time." Her face relaxed into a smile, grateful, relieved that I wasn't being difficult, wasn't creating conflict. I started pulling out strings of lights, untangling them methodically, the way I'd done for 30 years when Maud was young and this house was just ours. Jonathan emerged from the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, watching me work. He said nothing, but I caught his expression. Satisfaction. The old man was falling in line, cooperating, accepting his place. I strung lights along the staircase banister, hung ornaments on the tree's lower branches, positioned the wooden nativity scene near the front window. Every gesture deliberate, every action theater. Jonathan observed it all with visible pleasure, interpreting my compliance as submission. By mid-morning, the house looked festive, warm, inviting. The perfect setting for a family Christmas. The perfect stage for what was coming. At breakfast, Jonathan spread papers across the table between the juice glasses and coffee cups. Another business proposal, another opportunity. I recognized the pattern, the enthusiastic pitch, the projection charts, the confident promises. 5,000 gets us in at the ground level, Walter. He pointed to numbers on the page. This deal is different. Real investors, solid backing, market positioning that puts us ahead of... I sipped my coffee, set the cup down carefully. That's a significant amount, Jonathan. I know, but the potential... His eyes were bright, eager, certain of my compliance. Let's discuss it after Christmas. I kept my voice even, reasonable. We can sit down properly after the holidays. His enthusiasm dimmed. But the opportunity window... After the holidays, Jonathan. Maud jumped in quickly, grateful for what she saw as compromise. That's fair. Let's just enjoy Christmas first. Jonathan nodded, accepting the deferral. Not a refusal, so not worth fighting. The money would come eventually. It always did. I watched him fold the papers, pocket them. Watched him calculate, adjust, plan. He had no idea I'd never write another check. No idea that after the holidays meant never. That evening, after dinner, I broke the comfortable silence in the living room. Maud was reading. Jonathan scrolled through his phone. Everything peaceful, ordinary. "I've been thinking about Christmas dinner," I said. Maud looked up. "What about it, Dad?" "I'd like to say a few words about family, what it means, something from the heart." Jonathan practically jumped from his chair, crossed the room in 3 strides. His hand came down hard on my shoulder, that physical gesture of dominance disguised as affection. "That's perfect, Walter." His voice carried false warmth, manufactured enthusiasm. "Seriously, we'd all love that. We love you, man. You're important to all of us." I met his eyes, smiled. "I appreciate that, Jonathan. It means a lot." The irony was invisible to him. He thought I was performing my final act of family devotion before they kicked me out. Thought my speech would be sentimental, pathetic, easy to dismiss after they made their announcement about my supposed incompetence. I let him believe it. After they went to bed, Jonathan first, then Maud an hour later, I sat in my room and pulled out my phone. Scrolled to Mamie's number, called. She answered on the second ring. "Walter, it's late. Everything okay?" I kept my voice low, quiet enough that it wouldn't carry through the walls. "I need you to come to Christmas dinner, this Wednesday. It's important." Silence for a moment, then, "What's going on?" "I can't explain now, but I need you there. Can you come?" Another pause. Mamie knew me. Knew something had shifted, changed. "What time should I arrive?" Relief loosened something in my chest. 5:30, and Mamie, "Thank you." Her voice carried understanding, recognition. "I've been waiting for you to do something. Whatever it is, I'm there." I hung up, pulled out my notepad, wrote the full guest list one final time. 12 names total. Jonathan's father, Stephen. Jonathan's business associate, Marcus. 2 couples from the neighborhood Jonathan had befriended. Maud's former colleague from her teaching days. And Mamie. 12 witnesses to what was coming. I circled Stephen Grant's name twice, the co-conspirator. The man who'd helped plan my eviction. He'd watch his son's scheme crumble in front of an audience. I folded the list, placed it in my desk drawer beside Nichols' business card. Everything was coming together. The legal foundation, the evidence, the witnesses, the timing. 3 more days. I looked around my small room one last time before turning off the light. In 3 days, this would start being my house again. My home, my space, all of it. Sunday morning, Jonathan left the house around 10. He mentioned something about meeting Marcus, finalizing details for a business lunch scheduled for the following week. He'd be gone 2 hours, maybe 3. Perfect. I waited 15 minutes after his car pulled away, then went downstairs to the study, my former study. The room they'd taken over 6 months ago, filled with Jonathan's desk, his filing cabinets, his papers and equipment. The door was rarely locked. Why would it be? They didn't think I posed any threat. Inside, the room smelled like Jonathan's cologne, coffee, paper. His laptop sat closed on the desk, power light glowing. He never fully shut it down, just closed the lid. Lazy security, convenient for me. I opened the laptop. The screen flickered to life, displaying a password prompt. I'd watched him type it enough times over the past months, standing in doorways, passing through the hall, observing without seeming to observe. His fingers always hit the same sequence. MAUDE 2012. The year they'd gotten married. The computer unlocked. I pulled out my phone, set it on the desk beside me, opened the Notes app, ready to document everything I found. Then I began searching systematically through his files, his folders, his saved documents. Tax records first. I knew what I'd declared as household income over the past 2 years, my pension, my Social Security, the rental income from the veterinary clinic property I still owned. Now, I wanted to see what Jonathan had declared. The returns were filed jointly with Maud. Line by line, I reviewed the figures. My income was listed accurately. Maud's part-time teaching income appeared correct. But there was another entry, buried in investment income, $8,600. I read it twice. Investment income? From an account I'd never seen, never heard mentioned. I opened his email, searched for bank statements, brokerage notifications, found them easily. He'd organized everything in folders, labeled by month. The account belonged to him alone. Opened 2 years ago, the month they'd moved in with me. Regular deposits, all small amounts. 200 here, 300 there. Money skimmed from the investments I'd funded, the business expenses I'd covered. Every check I'd written him, he'd taken a portion and funneled it into this secret account. $8,600. Money that was supposed to go toward their future, their stability, their success. Instead, it had gone into Jonathan's private fund, hidden from Maud, hidden from me. I took screenshots, every statement, every transaction, every deposit. Sent them to my email address from his computer, then deleted the sent message from his outbox, cleared the browser history, removed any trace that I'd accessed his files. The laptop went back to sleep mode exactly as I'd found it. In my room upstairs, I transferred the screenshots to a folder on my phone, backed them up to cloud storage, printed copies on the small printer I kept on my desk. Documentation, evidence, proof of deception that went beyond the eviction plan. He'd stolen from me systematically, methodically, for 2 full years. I sat at my desk, looking at the printed statements. $8,600, added to the $47,300 I'd already documented, combined with the credit card charges I'd discovered Wednesday night. The total was staggering, but more than the money, this proved pattern: systematic lying, calculated theft, not just a son-in-law who'd fallen on hard times and needed help. This was a con artist who'd found a mark. I allowed myself a thin smile. He'd left the trail. I'd followed it. That evening, Jonathan returned home energized, excited. He found me in the living room, dropped onto the couch beside me with the casual familiarity of someone who believed this was his house. "Great meeting with Marcus," he announced. "Everything's coming together perfectly." "That's wonderful," I said, my tone matching his enthusiasm. "I'm glad things are working out." "They really are." He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen. "Hey, let me show you something. My dad wanted to say hi." He initiated a video call. Stephen Grant's face appeared on the screen, that same expression I'd seen both times we'd met. Superiority barely concealed behind politeness. "Walter, good to see you." Stephen's voice came through tinny but clear. "Looking forward to Christmas dinner. Jonathan tells me you're giving a speech." "Just a few words," I replied, keeping my expression warm. "About family, gratitude, the things that matter." "Beautiful." Stephen nodded approvingly. "Family is everything, isn't it? Taking care of each other, making sure everyone's looked after properly." The words carried layers I wasn't supposed to understand. Taking care of each other, looking after everyone properly. Code for the plan they thought was still secret. "Absolutely," I agreed, "making sure everyone gets exactly what they deserve." Jonathan laughed, pleased. Stephen smiled. Neither heard the double meaning. They talked for a few more minutes. Logistics for Wednesday, arrival time, parking arrangements. I participated appropriately, said the right things, played my role. When the call ended, Jonathan seemed satisfied, validated in whatever he'd told his father about my cooperation. "He's excited to see the house," Jonathan said, pocketing his phone. "I told him how much work we've put into making it a real home." Making it a home, as if he'd contributed anything beyond manipulation and theft. "I'm sure he'll be impressed," I said. Jonathan stood, stretched, headed toward the kitchen. "Want anything? I'm getting a snack." "I'm fine, thanks." He left, whistling, happy, confident, completely unaware that I had documentation of his secret account, copies of every statement, evidence of systematic theft, saved in 3 different locations. Completely unaware that the man he'd dismissed as a soft, accommodating victim had spent the day building an airtight case against him. I sat in the living room alone, listening to him rummage through the kitchen, hearing his cheerful humming. Tomorrow I'd pick up the documents from Nichols. Wednesday I'd deliver them. 30 days after that, Jonathan and Maud would be gone, and every dollar they'd taken, every lie they'd told, every manipulation they'd performed, all of it was documented now. Every single thing. Monday morning arrived clear and cold. I woke early, dressed carefully, checked my appearance in the mirror, professional, composed, ready. The drive to Nichols' office took 20 minutes through light holiday traffic. Most people had taken the week off, spending time with family, preparing for Christmas. I was preparing too, just not the way they were. Nichols greeted me in his office, gestured to the chair across from his desk. 2 envelopes sat between us, one thick manila folder, one smaller white envelope. He tapped the manila folder. "Everything you requested is here. The eviction notice, will changes, property declaration, financial accounting." I nodded. "And the other envelope?" He slid it across. "Evidence of the secret account. Bank statements, transaction history, current balance. $8,600 he claimed not to have." I picked it up, held it carefully. "This is legally sound?" "Completely. You have every right to evict guests from your property, and the financial evidence supports your case." He paused, held my gaze. "My advice? Serve it with witnesses present. Stay calm. Let the documents speak." I opened the manila envelope, reviewed each document. Eviction notice on official letterhead, dated December 25th. Will modification with notary seal, removing Maud as beneficiary, establishing the Oregon Animal Welfare Trust as recipient of my estate. Property declaration with witness signatures, confirming sole ownership. Financial spreadsheet listing every dollar. $47,300 detailed by date and purpose. The second envelope contained bank statements from Jonathan's secret account. Every deposit, every transaction, every lie documented in black and white. I placed both envelopes in my leather folder, withdrew my checkbook, wrote the final payment. We shook hands. Transaction complete. Good luck tomorrow, Nichols said. Thank you. I meant it. From his office, I drove directly to my bank. The estate planning officer was expecting me. I'd called Friday to schedule the appointment. She was efficient, professional, in her 40s with a businesslike demeanor. She reviewed the documents one final time. Just to confirm, Mr. Knight, this trust is irrevocable. Once executed, you cannot change the beneficiary or reclaim the property. I understand. Upon your death, the house automatically transfers to the Oregon Animal Welfare Trust. No probate, no contest period. I signed the final page. That's exactly what I want. No one inherits this house except the trust. She notarized my signature, applied stamps, filed copies. All set. You'll receive certified copies. I placed them in my folder alongside the attorney documents. Everything official, legal, permanent. Even in death, they'd get nothing. I returned home just after noon. The house hummed with activity. Maud worked in the kitchen, preparing dishes for tomorrow's dinner. Jonathan moved through the living room, rearranging furniture to accommodate 12 guests. Grandchildren ran past with ribbons and ornaments, excitement radiating from every corner. I stood in the doorway between kitchen and living room, watching. Maud tasted something on the stove, adjusted the heat. Jonathan positioned chairs around the extended dining table, humming cheerfully. The children laughed, decorating, celebrating. None of them noticed my quiet observation. None saw the folder under my arm. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, closed the door, opened the folder, removed the brown envelope containing the documents, held it, feeling its weight. Substantial, consequential. Tomorrow, this would change everything. I set it on my bed, left my room, rejoined the family activities, helped where asked, smiled when appropriate, maintained the performance for one more day. That evening, after dinner, after the excitement finally died down and everyone dispersed to their various activities, Maud upstairs bathing the children, Jonathan in the study on his phone, the house settling into quieter rhythms. I returned to my bedroom, retrieved the brown envelope, also grabbed the waterproof bag I'd purchased weeks ago and the roll of clear packing tape from my desk drawer. I descended the stairs carrying only these items. The dining room was empty, lights dimmed. The table stood already set for 12, plates arranged, glasses positioned, silverware gleaming under the chandelier. I approached slowly, slid the envelope into the waterproof bag, sealed the zipper closure carefully, then lowered myself to my knees. The carpet pressed against my joints as I positioned myself under the table, reached up, held the package against the underside of the tabletop, exactly where Jonathan's chair would be, center seat, head of the table, where he'd planned to sit while announcing my eviction. I tore strips of tape, pressed them firmly across the package, made sure it was secure, invisible from above, centered precisely, under the table, where he'll sit, where he planned to make his announcement. I backed out carefully, stood, brushed off my pants, glanced around. No one had seen. He wanted witnesses. He'll have them. I returned upstairs with the tape, placed it back in my desk drawer, sat on the edge of my bed. Tomorrow, 12 people would witness exactly who Jonathan was, and what I was capable of. The trap was set. Christmas Eve passed in a blur of final preparations and forced normalcy. I played my part, helped Maud with last-minute cooking, laughed with the grandchildren, watched Jonathan make final phone calls to confirm guests. Everyone believed tomorrow would be a celebration. Christmas Day dawned bright and cold, the house filled with the smell of roasting turkey, baking pies, warming dishes. Maud moved through the kitchen with determined focus, creating the perfect feast. Jonathan set out wine glasses, arranged bottles on the sideboard, Everything precise, deliberate, staged. By 5 o'clock, guests began arriving. Jonathan's colleagues Marcus and his wife, the neighbors from down the street, Maud's former teaching colleague, each carrying dishes, bottles, gifts. Each welcomed warmly into our home. Mamie arrived at 5:30 exactly as I'd requested. She embraced me, held on a moment longer than usual, whispered in my ear, "Whatever this is, I'm here." Stephen Grant arrived last, at 5:45. He carried 2 large suitcases, unusual for a dinner guest. Jonathan greeted him enthusiastically, helped him set the bags in the hallway near the front door. I watched from the living room. Those suitcases weren't for clothes or gifts. They were for moving my belongings, for packing me up after dinner, shipping me off to whatever facility they'd selected. I'd known they would come, but seeing them there, physical proof of their plan, solidified everything I was about to do. By 6, everyone had gathered in the living room. Conversation flowed, wine poured. Jonathan moved through the crowd confidently, playing host in my house. Maud beamed, proud of the gathering she'd created. At 6:15, Maud announced dinner was ready. Everyone moved to the dining room, found their seats. I'd arranged the place cards myself the night before, Jonathan at the head of the table, exactly where I'd placed the documents, Maud to his right, Stephen to his left. Mamie positioned next to me, several seats away from the center. I didn't join them. Instead, I put on my coat, picked up the overnight bag I'd packed that morning, and quietly left through the front door. Drove to the hotel downtown where I'd booked a room 3 days earlier, checked in, ordered room service, turned on my phone's notifications. At 6:45, my phone buzzed. Text message from Jonathan. "Where are you?" I typed 3 words. "Check under table." Sent. Then I waited. At the house I'd left behind, Jonathan read my text with genuine puzzlement, showed it to Maud, to Stephen. Guests noticed his confusion, the whispered conversation. Maud suggested maybe I'd left something there. A gift, perhaps. Jonathan shrugged, pushed back his chair, bent down. His hand found the waterproof package taped underneath. He pulled it free, straightened up holding it, confused. Everyone watching now. He unzipped the bag, withdrew the brown envelope, opened it. The first document was the eviction notice. Official letterhead. His name, Maud's name. 30 days to vacate the premises. Effective December 25th. His face went pale. The second document, will modification. Maud removed as beneficiary. Oregon Animal Welfare Trust designated as sole recipient. His hands started shaking. Third document, financial accounting. $47,300. Every check listed, every date, every broken promise. He set them on the table. Guests leaned closer, reading over his shoulder. Someone whispered. Someone else gasped. Fourth document, bank statements. His secret account. $8,600 he'd hidden. Money he'd claimed not to have while asking for more. Maud grabbed the statements, read them. Her face crumpled. The final page was my note, handwritten, brief. "Jonathan, I heard you Wednesday night, every word. Your plan to have me declared incompetent, the timeline, Stephen's involvement, the nursing home, all of it. You wanted an audience for your announcement. I'm giving you mine. 12 witnesses to your lies, your theft, your betrayal. The house is mine. It has always been mine. You have 30 days to leave. Walter." My phone rang at 7:10. "Jonathan?" I let it go to voicemail. Rang again immediately. Maud this time. I declined the call. A text from Mamie. "I'm staying. Guests are leaving. Jonathan's losing it. Stephen's screaming about lawsuits. Maud's crying. You did it." Another text 5 minutes later. "Everyone's gone except Stephen and me. He's demanding to know where you are. I told him it doesn't matter. The eviction is legal. He knows it." I set down my phone, ordered a drink from room service, sat by the window looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow I'd return home. Tomorrow I'd begin the 30-day countdown. Tomorrow, Jonathan and Maud would start packing, making calls, scrambling for somewhere to go. Tonight, I sat in peace, in a quiet hotel room that belonged to no one but me, where no one could manipulate me, steal from me, plan my exile. For the first time in 2 years, I felt free. The weight I'd carried since they moved in, the pressure, the obligation, the constant giving, lifted. Gone, replaced by something solid and sure. Justice. Not revenge. Justice. They'd planned to take everything. Instead, they'd lost it all. 12 witnesses had seen the proof. 12 people now knew exactly who Jonathan was, what he'd done, what he'd planned. The humiliation he'd intended for me had become his own. Perfect symmetry. I raised my glass to the window, to the city, to the house that was mine again. "Merry Christmas," I said quietly to the empty room, and meant it. Maud's hand shot across the table, snatched the documents from Jonathan's frozen grip. Her eyes moved rapidly across the text. Eviction notice, will modification, financial accounting. Each line registered like a physical blow. She flipped to the next page, then the next. Bank statements. Jonathan's secret account. $8,600. She looked up at him, face drained of color. "Jonathan, what is this?" He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Her phone was in her hand before she'd decided to move, fingers shaking as she dialed. Around the table, 12 witnesses sat in stunned silence, watching. "Dad?" Her voice cracked on the single word. Walter's voice came through the phone, calm, measured, almost gentle. "Maud, I'm sorry to ruin Christmas, but I couldn't play this game anymore." "What game?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Dad, what's happening?" "A week ago, I overheard Jonathan on the phone with Stephen. They planned to evict me tonight, at this dinner, in front of everyone." Silence. Maud's breath caught. "I just acted first. Everything in those documents is legal and proper." "But we're family!" Her voice rose, desperate. "This is our home." Walter's response came gentle but immovable. "No, sweetheart, it's my home. It always was. And family doesn't conspire to throw someone out on the street. I love you, but I won't be used anymore." Pause. She could hear him breathing, steady and calm. "You have 30 days. That's more than you were planning to give me." The line went dead. Maud lowered the phone slowly, stared at it like it was something foreign. Around her, 12 faces watched with varying degrees of discomfort and shock. Stephen Grant stood abruptly, chair scraping against hardwood. His face had gone crimson, hands clenched into fists. "That old fool! We'll sue him! This is illegal eviction, retaliation." Mamie set down her water glass, voice cutting through his bluster with calm precision. "You'll lose. Walter owns the house outright. His name alone on the deed. You're guests, not tenants. No lease exists. No rent was ever paid." Stephen wheeled on her. "You knew about this." "I suspected." Mamie didn't flinch. "Walter's not stupid. Neither am I." Jonathan finally found his voice, hollow and distant. "There has to be something wrong with these documents, some error." Mamie picked up the eviction notice, examined it professionally. "Attorney seal. Proper 30-day notice period. Legal language perfectly formatted." She set it down. "It's legitimate. I'm sorry, Jonathan. But you brought this on yourself." The room fell silent again. Uncomfortable, suffocating. One of Jonathan's colleagues cleared his throat, stood. "Jonathan, man, we should probably head out." His wife nodded quickly. "Early day tomorrow, you understand?" Jonathan looked up, dazed. "Yeah, sure." Another couple rose. "Thanks for, we'll call you." They didn't wait for a response. Like dominoes falling, the exodus began, murmured apologies, avoided eye contact. Coats retrieved quickly. One by one, the carefully assembled witnesses, the audience Jonathan had gathered for Walter's humiliation, fled the scene of his own exposure. Stephen grabbed both suitcase handles, dragged them toward the door with violent force. The bags that were meant to pack Walter's belongings, now symbols of spectacular failure. He didn't say goodbye, just slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Within 20 minutes, the house was empty except for Maud crying at the table and Jonathan frozen in his chair, documents spread before him like evidence at a crime scene. The Christmas tree blinked its colored lights. The untouched feast grew cold. Carefully arranged place settings sat undisturbed, monuments to a celebration that would never happen. Jonathan's phone lit up as he began dialing numbers from his contacts. Each call reached voicemail. "You've reached the law offices of... This is Attorney Johnson." Every recording the same. Closed for the holiday, leave a message. He set the phone down, picked up the documents again, read line by line, finger-tracing text like he could find some hidden flaw through sheer force of will, studied the date, the signature, the legal language, grabbed his laptop, typed frantically. Oregon eviction law, guest versus tenant, legal notice requirements. Every search confirmed what Mamie had said. He slumped back in his chair. "It's real, isn't it?" Maud's voice was barely audible. Jonathan didn't answer, just stared at the papers that had destroyed everything. Hours passed. Jonathan made more calls, left more messages, searched more websites, found nothing that would help. Around 11, Maud picked up her phone again, dialed with trembling fingers. Walter answered on the first ring. "Maud, can we talk? Tomorrow?" Brief pause. "Come to the house. 1 o'clock. Alone." Click. Maud lowered the phone, looked at Jonathan. "He's coming back tomorrow." Jonathan said nothing, just continued staring at the wall, at the life that had collapsed in a single evening. At a modest hotel on Portland's outskirts, Walter set down his phone, stood at the window, looking out at the city lights, the scattered Christmas decorations glowing in windows across the darkness. For the first time in 2 years, the weight was gone, the pressure, the obligation, the constant erosion of dignity and space. He climbed into bed, set his phone on the nightstand, turned off the light, and slept peacefully until morning. I returned home the next afternoon, December 26th. The house stood quiet, Christmas decorations still blazing in the windows, but the energy drained, hollow. I let myself in with my key to my house, and found Maud sitting alone at the kitchen table. Jonathan wasn't there. She'd come alone as I'd requested. "Dad." Her eyes were red, face puffy from crying. I poured us both coffee, sat across from her. "I want you to understand something. I love you. That never changed. But I couldn't let him take my home." "I didn't know," her voice broke, "about his plan, about any of it." I opened my folder, withdrew the financial documentation, spread it across the table. $47,300. Every check listed by date, amount, purpose. 2 years of my retirement savings funneled into Jonathan's schemes. Every time he asked, I gave. I tapped the spreadsheet. Every promise he made about paying me back, about the next big deal, about getting established, all lies. And Wednesday night, I heard him on the phone with Stephen, planning to have me declared incompetent, planning to take this house. Maud's hands covered her mouth. "He had suitcases at dinner, Maud, moving bags. He was going to ship me off to some facility and move his father into my bedroom. My home was going to become their property." She wept. "I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. Should have stopped it. You were manipulated too, but now you have a choice." I pulled back the papers. "I won't stop you from seeing your children. You're their mother. But Jonathan cannot come back here. The eviction stands." "What do I do?" "That's up to you, but I suggest you figure out what you want for yourself, not what he tells you to want." Over the following weeks, Maud made her choice. She consulted 3 different attorneys on Jonathan's behalf, trying to find some legal challenge to the eviction. Each confirmed what Mamie had said. The eviction was valid, properly executed, legally sound. By mid-January, Jonathan moved to an apartment in Beaverton. Maud stayed at the house with the children, sleeping in the guest room. We barely spoke during those days. The air between us was heavy with unresolved pain. On January 24th, exactly 30 days after Christmas, Jonathan came for the last of his belongings. I was there when he loaded the final boxes into his truck. He paused at the door, looked at me. "You could have just talked to me." I met his eyes. "I did talk to you. For 2 years. Every time I wrote a check, every time I covered another bill, every time I said yes when I should have said no. You just never listened." He had nothing to say to that. Climbed into his truck and drove away. I never saw him again. In February, Maud filed for divorce. In March, she found a job teaching at a private school in Northeast Portland. By April, she'd rented a small house nearby, close enough that I could see my grandchildren regularly, far enough that she was building her own life. She insisted on paying rent for the time she'd stayed, $400 a month, sent in a check every first of the month. I tried to refuse. She wouldn't let me. "I need to do this, Dad. I need to know I can stand on my own." I accepted the checks. Through spring and summer, our relationship slowly rebuilt. Not what it had been, but something new. Honest. real. She brought the children over on weekends. We'd sit in my backyard, my yard, in my house, in my space, and watch them play. She never asked me to forgive Jonathan, never suggested reconciliation. She'd seen the evidence, understood the betrayal, made her choice. On August 29th, my 68th birthday, Maud brought dinner to my house. Real cooking, not takeout. The kids made me cards with crayons and glitter. After dinner, after the children were occupied with toys in the living room, Maud sat beside me on the back porch. "I want to say something." I waited. "Thank you." Her voice was steady, clear. "For 2 years, I watched Jonathan use you. I told myself you were being generous, that you wanted to help. But I knew. Deep down, I knew. And I let it happen because it was easier than standing up to him." She looked at me. "You showed me what courage looks like, what boundaries look like. You fought for yourself when I couldn't fight for you. And in doing that, you taught me how to fight for myself." My throat tightened. "You're doing well. The job, the house, the kids. You're building something real. Because you showed me it was possible." She squeezed my hand. "I'm proud to be your daughter." I pulled her into a hug. My daughter, my home, my life. All of it reclaimed, restored, rebuilt. Not perfect. Some wounds take time to heal, some distances remain, but honest, clean, mine. Later that evening, after Maud and the children left, I sat alone in my living room. The house was quiet, peaceful. The space felt like mine again. No one manipulating, no one scheming, no one slowly eroding my dignity check by check. I'd spent $47,000 learning a lesson about boundaries, about saying no, about protecting what's mine. Expensive education, but worth every penny, because I'd gotten something more valuable in return. My self-respect, my home, my life, and in the end, that was everything. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.